So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Wow, what a full house. So as they introduced us, we have been able to gather these 4 amazing women, and it's not too often where we're able to get the quality of women that you have here with us today. And we're going to be able to talk a little bit about their personal journeys as women, as mothers, and also their professional journeys, obviously a profession and corporate executives as they are. So once again, welcome to Martina, to Monique, to Jacqueline, and to Maria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
I'm all very excited. So we'll go ahead and start with Martina. As you know, she's a strategic planning and communications manager at HP Labs, very important. Now, Martina, we constantly read and hear that we don't have enough women in the tech arena. You know, I think that's a message that we've been hearing over and over, especially in the recent years. In your specific scenario, and HP specifically, you've had great role models. I mean, a lot of emerging women that have been able to succeed at a very high level. You know, your CEO, obviously, and obviously now Carly Fiorina making headlines today.
That's right.
So you had great role models within the company, you could say. What advice could you give to women who are trying to break into the tech arena?
No, I think it's really true that we hear things, but I think what's actually happening in the industry is really changing now, where it used to be a lot harder to find people that looked like you in the industry. And now I think there's actually a lot more people that are in the leadership roles. As you said, you know, our CEO is a woman. We had another CEO that was a woman several years ago when I first joined HP. And, you know, they're providing leadership from the top, but it's not just at the CEO level as well. I think we're seeing it in all parts of the company. And I think for me, something that really helped me early in my career was that I sort of looked for someone that was in the position that I wanted to be when I was early in my career. And I said, you know, I saw this person, she was like a mentor to me. And I asked her, I said, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be in your position. And I said, what do I do? And so she said, well, you know, you can start by doing this. You can start by speaking in conferences. You can start by writing papers. And she gave me some different things that she had done early in her career. And that's what helped me kind of get started. It's actually really interesting because then 5 or 6 years afterwards, we were at a conference together several years later. And I was the one that was chairing a session. And I was doing a presentation like today. And she was in the audience. And then she came up to me and she said, you know, she's like, do you remember all those years ago you asked me, you said you wanted to be doing what I was doing, and if you remember, that's where you are now, you're doing it, and that's what you wanted to do. So I thought it was great because she really reminded me that all it takes sometimes is to look for someone that is who you want to be a little further ahead. And sometimes that person doesn't have to be a woman necessarily, or it doesn't have to be someone of your color. I mean, it really can be someone that just gives you an example, and people are generally really happy to share their story with you.
Maria from IBM, would you like to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we are right now in IBM going through a huge transformation, and our CEO is a woman at a company like IBM. So I think the opportunity for women in technology is opening up more than ever, and we see it in probably one of the most traditional companies like IBM. And I agree, I think that it's sometimes women, we hold ourselves back. We tend to be perfectionists. We're looking for the right opportunity, and we say everything has to be perfect, T's and C's crossed, and am I ready for that position? And sometimes I think that, you know, we are the ones that need to kind of open up, I mean, and look for these opportunities. Surround yourself with people you respect. Look for areas where you can go and be aggressive, achieve, be bold. And so I think that there's an opportunity now in the tech world, and you know, and I think that sometimes, like I said, it's important that you look for people that you respect, people that you look up to, and look at opportunities to reach for those jobs that are big roles, that are bold, and that you can thrive in. So.
For Monique and Jacqueline, I think in the media industry, it's a lot easier to see the presence of female in front of the camera, on the pages of your magazines. On the corporate side, what's your opinion in terms of the evolution of the women representation within the newsroom, within obviously the corporate side?
You want to go first?
Sure. I think that it has truly evolved over time. I started on the ad agency side about 20 some odd years ago. And at that point in time, you really didn't see a lot of women in the advertising industry in the C-suite. It was a very male-dominated community, but I think because of the nature of our businesses, obviously, we have to represent every point of view, all aspects of diversity in our work, and so I do think that over time that has improved significantly. And I think that a lot of major media companies are really investing in grooming that talent and bringing them up in leadership roles. I mean, you know, as a woman, I'm always going to say it's not enough yet, and I'd like to see more, but I do think that there's been a natural progression so that we can replicate the face of the nation.
Right.
And I think in media, we have seen a lot more women probably than in other sectors, not just in television, but across the board. I mean, you know, at Time Inc., you had many CEOs that were women, and it's something that as we move forward, we're only going to continue to see because women have such an impact on all things entertainment and media and beauty and fashion. So I think it's just a continuous evolution. I did want to add one thing to what you said about the mentoring, because I think that is really important. Getting feedback and being open to feedback is something that's really key. And for me, it's also been looking at different things and different styles and elements that other female leaders have had, that then you can kind of emulate and create your own little version of what you want to be and how you want to be perceived.
Martina, going back to you, HP Research Lab helps drive innovation in HP. What did you consider, instead of going to the core side of the business, why did you decide to go into the lab side of it?
You know, it's interesting. When I was offered my job originally, my first job at HP Labs, I didn't even know that job existed when I was offered it. It was a university relations job, and I wasn't looking for a job in that kind of an area. But for me, it was an interesting story because I had that opportunity because I had done work on my side to prepare myself for it. I had volunteered for different kinds of conferences, and it was at a conference where I met the person who became my first boss. And you know, really HP Labs for me has always been so interesting, and why I've been there almost 11 years now, is that when it comes to research, when you look at things on a medium and a long-term horizon, especially in technology, it's so exciting because things are happening very fast today, and it's really disrupting business models today. But then you also look really far ahead, and you start to see these radical, transformative changes that we can make in computing that are totally going to turn things around. And I look at that and I say it's such a great opportunity because it's something that we can, you know, be excited about today that makes an impact on our lives now, and we can see the line of sight to where it's going to be in the future that's going to make it even more interesting. Yeah. So I know that you probably have a similar experience as well. And
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's the technology industry is changing so fast, and to be right there in the middle of it is very exciting. And when I think about, you know, when I think about women also in the workforce, I mean, I have a certain guiding principles that I've always followed. And one of them is I'm a true believer in the power of and versus or. And sometimes as women, we said, can we really balance work, family, you know, being a wife, and everything that we have to do? And I really think it's, you know, the power of and is really something where you have choices. You know, I look at myself and I am a mother and I'm an executive. I am a businesswoman, but I also have a passion for fitness. I'm a fitness trainer. I am a Latina, you know, originally from Chile, but I also am an American. I have friends, but I also am a trainer and train some of my friends. So it's a power of choices that we make.
How do you keep the balance? What is your key to success?
I think is you prioritize. You prioritize and you make your choices, because if you don't, somebody else will for you. And it's that self first. So when I look at, and you know, you look at your lives, you will make time for the things that are important. You will make time for the things that are important. And so when you think about, you know, I wanted to become a mother. I wanted to become an executive. When I joined IBM, I set my goals high. I said, by the time I'm 40, I want to be a vice president, and I'm going to get there. And I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to have goals. I'm going to surround myself with people that I respect, that I can learn. And then I'm going to go make those plans happen. I also decided that I wanted to be a mother. So I'm a mother to 2 kids. I also said, I want to also be healthy and fit and live a very long time. So I'm going to become a trainer. And so my life, and people ask me, what does your schedule look like? What does your morning, what does your evening look like? And I'm very disciplined. And I think one of the things that you know, it's choices, it's discipline, it's prioritization, and then really being able to say no to things that are not important, and being able to really prioritize to the things that are important. So it's okay if I don't bring home-baked brownies to my daughter's birthday party. I'll buy a box and make them. It's okay if they're not homemade. That's a choice that I make so I can allow time for other things that are more important.
Now that you touched on the personal front, I know Martina was talking to Monique, and it was interesting to hear them talk behind stage what they were talking about. And it wasn't about what they were going to discuss or how the business was going. It was about her leaving her 8-month-old baby behind. To be able to, and that's the first time she's leaving her baby behind. And Monique about being a mother of twins. So it's interesting to see how, even among you guys at that high corporate level, what you share, and the most time, when you're off, is those personal details.
Absolutely. I think that, even in corporate America, you build a community. And, when you say and, I believe the word and extends beyond just prioritizing, but it's and with a team. And,
right.
I think women such as the ones that I have the honor of being surrounded here with are very smart about being able to hire people who are independent and entrepreneurial and can really operate independently to allow them to focus on the areas that they're best at and allow the rest of us to do the things that we need to do.
Let's talk about change and evolution within the business and work. And I think all four of you have had to adapt, obviously, to change, and all of you are in a very fast changing environment. Going back to Jacqueline, Jacqueline, you have been pretty much in every aspect of the media business, and you've had to do with a little bit of everything. Even now, theme parks, you covered a little bit of that now. So can you tell us a little bit about diversity within the company, and also how you have been able to adapt to new technology, to new businesses, also new projects within NBC Universal?
Sure. I think change is something that we all talk about and we have to really embrace. And a great story, a personal story that talks about change that kind of has been my leading light has been when I was a little girl and at the beach, my dad would always tell me, when you see a wave, don't duck. Dive into it and ride out on top. And that's kind of what I feel like is always happening, whether it's technology or it's, even in my role now, when you look at Hispanic, it's not just Hispanic at Telemundo, it's at NBC Universal, looking at the demographics and what's going on. And it's being in front of it when you see something that's happening instead of waiting for it to catch up or continuing to stay in your own zone. As a result, I don't think that right now anyone can say that you can sit still. You have to always be changing and evolving with what's going on. And in my role, it's exciting because I do feel like I'm playing with a lot of different interesting toys within a company that I'm learning. And so, I think no matter how far you get in your career, a rule for us all should be always be learning, always be passionate. I think you're totally right about prioritizing, but if you're passionate about what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier to fit it all in a day. And when you really do love the brands and the people that you're working with, you can find ways to make 1 + 1 = 3. And I think that that's really key to what I'm looking at doing right now.
Monique, talking about the brand and diversifying, I think People in Español is a great example for when people were doubting the printing business and people actually reading magazines. You went ahead and thought out of the box, and you started doing the live events, the red carpet experience. Tell us a little bit about how you were able to take People in Español into a more digital and obviously more maybe like an on-site experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to Jackie's point, we had to change with our own client demands and obviously our audience demands, and that's the most important thing for us at People in Español. And we really had to turn the whole model on its head, right? So we write a magazine, our editors write a beautiful magazine that's issued every month, and it used to be the way to break a story. And as we moved into the digital age and certainly the social and mobile age, it had to be the opposite, right? So everybody was really forced out of their comfort zone and saying, okay, well, we're going to use our digital properties and our social properties to actually break news and then do a further in-depth story. So that's just one small example of what we've done. But also our audience is really, really smart, and they're very interested in content in multiple ways, and they want to receive it whenever they want it, anywhere that they want it. And so it's not enough anymore just to give them the printed page. It's not enough to give them just, a 20-page photo gallery online. online, they want to talk real time to our editors, and they want to know that our editors are not only, listening to them, but are opening a two-way dialogue with them and answering them. And so they want to touch and feel the brand in multiple experiences. And so we do that, certainly continue to do that through the magazine. We do it through our social and mobile space, but now we do it in the live event space. So, it wasn't enough to just give 24, 48-hour coverage of Los 50 Más Bellos, the 50 most beautiful. We actually live stream the red carpet, right? And we do 3 cameras. It wasn't enough to just feature the women that we do in the 25 most influential franchise. We actually have to bring them to life. And so we now have a consumer-facing platform for that, where women can actually come in, and you've been, a wonderful partner, Pamela, to us there, and Jackie as well, who's been honored. And they come in and they actually hear and get real-life advice. All the stuff that we're talking to this audience about now, they get to be inspired by. And then we have a family event with Festival, which we've hosted in San Antonio for the past 3 years. And that's a place where they can come and for an entire weekend for free get everything from health advice to meet their favorite celebrities to talk about finance and investment. And so we really have to surround this audience with an experience. It can no longer just be an audience that we talk at or talk to. And I think that, everybody on this panel probably in some way, shape, or form does the same thing with their own business.
Yeah, and I think, Maria, for IBM also, when you have such a well-established brand, you also face a challenge in maintaining the essence of it, while at the same time changing and evolutionizing as well. So I think that's a challenge and the balance, especially now, I think from going maybe from like hardware to software. I think with that, would you consider that's probably the biggest challenge for IBM right now, or maybe the biggest, maybe not challenge, but maybe most exciting thing going on right now?
Yeah, well, it's actually very exciting because IBM has been a brand that's traditionally been known for hardware running infrastructure. And actually the cab driver on the way said, well, so what's happening at IBM? And you would be surprised at the things that IBM is behind the scenes. So when you think about this Sun Life Stadium here, the whole kind of infrastructure, the whole behind the scenes as fans are coming in, when you get that text that says we have specials, at the concession stands, or directing the traffic as fans are coming in, all that software infrastructure is run by IBM. And so IBM is changing, is transforming, and when you think about one of our biggest business areas now is the software. And in the area that I lead is actually really exciting because it's all of the area around social, mobile, and commerce. And I get the pleasure of being Chief Marketing Officer for those divisions. So when we think about the reaching individuals, it's no longer segments. It's no longer throwing out there campaigns and hopefully somebody will pay attention, or you go into a segment of women these ages. You have to talk to the individuals. You have to talk to that individual in context, in real time, where they are at that moment in time. So when we think about marketing, it is critical that you create that experience at a very opportunistic time. And so we have an opportunity with the social, with the mobile, with the tools that we have in the software and commerce to really get and create those experiences that are going to create advocates of our brands. And so and then also when we think about what's also changing is the way we work internally in companies. So you think about the collaboration across employees, across the workforce. That's another exciting area, and we're seeing a lot of that. It's transforming. At IBM, it used to be the offices. It used to be if you ever wanted to become an executive, you had to be in New York. I was never in New York. Actually, I lived 14 years here in Florida and became a vice president here in Florida. The world that we live in, you're connected all the time, anywhere. And the collaboration and the tools that we sell to businesses provides us the ability to connect.
We have more flexibility now too.
Yeah.
Maria, you've been at HP for Martina for over 10 years.
That's right.
Now, what did you wish you knew back then that you know now?
That's a great question. You didn't tell me you were going to ask me that. I think it goes back to really understanding the importance of having a strong team around you. And it doesn't necessarily mean when you're first starting your career that because you don't have anyone reporting to you or because you're an individual contributor that is kind of out of your control, because I think we really all have the control to kind of build a community around ourselves of people that we share talents and interests with, or we complement each other and we can get things done in a better way. So it's interesting because when you were asking, or you were mentioning how we were all talking a little bit about our family lives and our travel schedules and things like that backstage, I was just thinking that it really is something that I think a lot of women do very well, actually, is that we we build connections among ourselves, even when we're not necessarily physically in the same room together. And I think a lot of times probably all of you, like me, I spend a ton of time on the phone, on conference calls. And there are people that I've worked with for years that I've never met in person. But we have a great relationship because even if it's a couple minutes before the phone call starts, we take a little bit of time. How's your family? How's everything going with you? And you build that up. And now that I've been at HP for over 10 years, I call that people equity. Right? And that's that people equity that you build up inside your community, and it doesn't have to just be your company. It can be organizations that you're a part of, groups that you participate in, and that, I think, enriches your life, and it also brings so many things to be able to help you create that team and do more together. And then as you go up in your career, of course, when you become an executive, when you become a manager, you have that opportunity to build a team, and that's actually something that I think is really exciting as well when you start to grow, because then you take that same idea and you say, how can I find the best people that are better than me, and put them together in a team, and they push you and they make you better too.
Yeah. Jacqueline, what would you consider has been your biggest challenge or obstacle going up the ladder?
I never really look at it as challenges. I think that one of the things that we all have to remember is that we are brands, and we need to kind of position ourselves and look at how we appear to the people that work on our teams, to the people that we work for, and how we kind of connect dots. And so throughout the last 10 years, I think it's really just been looking at how I can position and be a brand and be the best brand that I can be, and work with teams that I can bring together and really kind of build what we're looking to do. I also think it's about communication and communicating a vision that you want to have and a passion for it, and then articulating it so that people can really rally behind you and be a part of what you're doing and share in it.
Monique, going back to one of my favorite issues, which is La 25 Más Poderosas, which are your women most influential issue for people in Español. Where did the idea come from in terms of that women and highlighting successful women was also a very lucrative business?
Yeah, so the franchise has existed for many years, way before I became publisher, almost 4 years ago. And it really grew out of research. And so I started to talk a little bit earlier about how important listening to our audience is. And the more that we listen to these women who would talk to us about their lives and their careers and balance and things that we've all discussed here, the more we realize that there's a real void in the marketplace for Hispanic women in particular when it comes to careerism and entrepreneurism. And so we really set out on this journey through some proprietary research that we do to say, where are those voids that exist for you? And it's nothing that's probably a surprise to anybody in the room. It's a new generation of women who are more successful than ever before, more successful than their aunts and their grandmothers and possibly even their sisters and their cousins. And so the people that they would normally turn to for this advice on a day-to-day basis are not the people that can really help them in this case. And corporate America is coming along, I believe, in focusing on the diversity of the women in the workplace, both African American and Hispanic. But I think there's still some more work to be done. And so the more we realize that this void existed, the more we realize that although we are a celebrity publication, it's our responsibility to inspire and inform and motivate, and that this is a very important place where these women need that inspiration. And so more and more over the past, I'd say, 3 years, we've really focused on the careerism and the entrepreneurism aspect of the women that they follow. And the response has been magnificent. And so you'll see us do more work in that space moving forward.
Good. Jacqueline, let's talk a little about social responsibility in terms of NBC Universal and the brand. Why is it important, not only from an executive perspective, but also from a women's perspective? I'm sure there's also a little bit of that sentimental feeling in terms of like, what do you decide where the brand's going to be associated with, and why is it important to be associated with something that is socially responsible for the company?
It's such an important thing for our brands, for Telemundo and NBC Universal, and also for the whole broader company. We brought in Rocky about 2 years ago, and she's just been doing a fabulous job at looking at how do we position ourselves and understand this consumer better? So like you were saying with research, we identified areas like health and education that we wanted to really look at how we could speak to the consumer. One of the things that came from that research was with health, we discovered that it wasn't just about talking about health in general, but really looking at the Hispanic community from a point of view of prevention. So Prevenir is Vivir is one of the platforms that we've launched, and it's really to educate the consumer on what we're looking to communicate on how they can prevent from some of the major diseases that are happening to the Hispanic community. In addition to that, even when we look at something like education, instead of just education as a broad, we're looking at STEM and how we can help bring more Hispanics to careers in STEM and in the field there. So it's so key to what we do, and I'm glad you brought it up, because with more research and more understanding and really digging deeper into this, we want to be the solution and an answer for the consumer.
Maria, going back to your personal story, and now that you mentioned the Hispanic point of it, it's evident that we have 4 very powerful Hispanic Latinas here on stage with us. And you always mention this every time they've interviewed you. You always say, you know, speaking Spanish has always been a plus for me, and it gave me the opportunity to reach out to Latin America and to expand also your brand and your opportunities within the company. What advice you give for people that do have those personal skill sets and perhaps either don't like to highlight on it, or, you know, what would be the best way to actually maybe make them more in your favor?
Yeah, I mean, I think that culture and language is a gift. It's a gift.
Yep.
And when you're young, I mean, I came to the U.S. when I was 7. I was born in Chile, and I went to North Carolina, south, and there was nobody that spoke Spanish. And I remember growing up in North Carolina, and I would tell my parents to walk ahead of me because I didn't want them to talk in Spanish to me. I didn't want to be different. And so if anybody turned around and heard another language, it was, no, please don't talk to me in public. And my mother always said, you know, in the house, we speak Spanish. We're a Latin family, we speak Spanish. And I used to get grounded if I spoke English in the house. And she said, one day you'll remember why this is so important, why this is so important. And sure enough, I was 2 years into IBM, and an opportunity came in Latin America, and to open up a whole new center for our direct business. And because I spoke Spanish, I was tapped to go and say, hey, here's an opportunity, go make something out of it. And it was because of my ability to speak another language. And then, you know, obviously proving yourselves and skills of what you're able to do. But from that, it accelerated my career. And so I always say, your culture, your language is a gift. Don't let it hold you back. Use it. I'm grounded. I am proud to be Latin, and look forward. And not in where you've come from, but where you're going.
And now I would even add that it's become a really huge competitive advantage.
Huge differentiator. And so my kids, I mean, it's Spanish at home. And their father's American, but it's Spanish at home. And both of them were bilingual. And so the differentiator today, and it's not even 1 language, it's now 2 languages and 3 languages. But I think it's such an opportunity, and it's a differentiator. And it was in my career. And so I cherish where I come from, my roots, but I don't let it limit me. And I said, you know, I always look forward.
Martina, would you like to add?
You know, I had a very similar experience. I was also the kid who had, you know, risotto in her lunchbox, and then everybody else had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? And everyone, what's that? And I felt very different at the time, but now I also feel the same way. It's really is a gift, and when you have the opportunity to experience different cultures, then you can use that and to be able to relate to people in a different way, to be able to solve problems differently, because the reality is that when you're in either a corporate environment, a startup environment, when you're in school, I mean, there's always different personalities of people, and sometimes you have to find the way to reach someone to find a solution to a problem, and sometimes it's hard because they may have a way of doing things that's very different than yours, or a culture that's very different. But when you can use your own experiences and say, hold on, I need to think about this differently, you can use that as an advantage. And of course, as you said, I mean, I think we've all found ways to use that professionally as well, to get tapped for, to promote yourself for an opportunity that someone else wouldn't necessarily be quite as good in, because you can bring something different to the table. So I think it's super important.
It's interesting to hear both stories, because in that very same research that I was talking about earlier, what we've learned is that Hispanic women modulate their behavior, and they modulate it depending on the circumstances or the environment in which they're in. So you're talking about having the risotto in the lunchbox. I hear stories like this all the time. Well, women in the workplace modulate their behavior depending on what they believe is acceptable or not acceptable.
Right.
And so many times they're sort of pulling back on their cultural roots because they're not really sure how they're going to be perceived. Everything from do I appear less smart because I may have an accent, am I appropriately dressed for the workplace? These are all very big concerns for women. My personal story is a little bit different. I didn't even realize I was a minority until I went into the workplace, because I grew up in such a highly Hispanic community in New Jersey, Hudson County. Anybody from Hudson County? In a very Hispanic community in New Jersey, and it wasn't until I got to the advertising agency environment that I realized there were 2 Latinas and 1 African American. And it was only then that I started to think about modulating or not modulating, and I clearly didn't, because at some point I kept raising my hand for all of the projects that were happening in Latin America and saying, do you need somebody to translate something? Because I was so bored with what I was doing, in my regular day job. And finally, this big opportunity opened up. It was at the time that pan-regional media planning and buying had just started. So people, all the MTVs and the Financial Times, everybody was expanding into Latin America as a region for media. And the woman who had just been promoted into her role really needed help. And she said to our worldwide media director at the time, you've got to give me another body, and I want that young girl who sits by the fax machine, who helps me with all of my translations, and she speaks Spanish, and she knows everybody that we talk to over the phone. And so I think that, young women today, or women at any age really, who are, working on their career need to hear these stories and need to pull back a little bit on the modulation, because it could actually catapult them for another opportunity.
And I just wanted to build on what you said and to emphasize it, because I think it's such an important point, where you said you were volunteering for things. You were looking for opportunities. You were saying, I can do that. It's not my job, but it doesn't matter. I want to do that. That's how you gain new skills. You meet different people. You make connections in the workplace. And ultimately, it helps you advance your career, because look at how successful you've been, because you raised your hand all those times. And I think that's so important for young people, and when you're just starting out in your career, that it really is okay.
Yeah, who doesn't want great people who want to do things?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's highlight on what didn't work for you. Jacqueline, we could start with you.
What didn't work? Wanting something so bad and focusing on that promotion or that job or that next step, and not so much focusing on just take the moment and do what you're doing and do it really well. And sometimes today I meet some folks, and they'll come in and they'll be like, how do I get to this position and your position and that? And I go, take a breath and don't think so much about where you want to be. It's good to have an ambition. It's great to have a plan. But also, if you can really just be excellent at what you're doing, raise your hand for things, get noticed, that's going to get you much farther than if you're constantly thinking about what the next move is. And so over the years, I've just realized that, it's about doing what you do and doing it really well. And some of it is having a plan and working really hard, and some of it is fate and luck and being at the right time in the right place.
Maria?
I would say it's be present. I mean, it's be present in where you are today. Have goals, have ambition, but be present in what you are doing at that moment in time. And somebody mentioned learning. Always learning and surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. Yeah. And like I said, I have another passion, which is fitness. And I box, and so I train.
So she's
with
like
people
Superwoman, and
I train with people that are better than me, so that I can be better. And so I've had my share of black eyes and all of that, because I want to be better. And so I train with people that are better, and always that surround yourself with people that are better than you. And sometimes we tend to reserve and compare our weaknesses to somebody else's strength, and I can't be like her, or I can't be like them. Don't do that. I mean, just be present in who you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, keep working at it. Surround yourself with those people that can make you better, and just, and I can't stress to be present, to your comment. I mean, in where you are today.
Can I add one more thing to the, I love the hire people that are smarter than you. I always look to do that.
Yeah.
But I also think hire people, and don't hire people that are just going to yes you. Have people that are going to challenge you and make you think. Agree to disagree is fine, but that kind of having a team that you're able to have open conversations with, that's going to make everybody much more successful.
Monique or Martina, could one of you share perhaps a story of like a lesson learned, something that maybe marked or was a pivotal point in your career that was a before and after in terms of being a professional and executive in this field?
Yeah, it actually goes back to a little bit of the challenges that we're talking about, and I would just add to the challenges, being self-aware is really, really important, and being able to take criticism and constructive criticism, because I think once you learn to leave the personal side of that behind, everybody that you work with and touch in your professional life, no matter how difficult they could be, it allows you to learn from them. The other thing I would say is also just on the point of being present and really focusing on what it is that you want. Don't focus so much that you've sort of mapped out your trajectory, because when I started, again, on the advertising side, on the agency side, there were very traditional roles. Many of them don't even exist anymore, interestingly. And you had to go from this step to that step. In fact, I worked on the IBM business for many, many years, and can relate to how you had to have certain titles and you had to be in certain offices. And I remember at a very young age when I was given this opportunity to work more in the Latin America space instead of the US space. I remember going to my boss and saying, oh my goodness, but I haven't checked these 12 boxes in terms of getting to that next space. And he was both a very famous and infamous worldwide media director where I worked, and he said, kid, I'm going to teach you how to make shit happen. And that's all you'll ever need to know. And I have to say it was one of the best lessons that I ever learned, because I find that the most successful people around me can actually affect change.
Martina, do you actively mentor anyone? Are you a big advocate for mentorship in terms of like the next generation?
I definitely am. I think it's been really important in my own life in various different points, and some of them have been long-term relationships with a mentor that I've had, and some of them are, sometimes it's just a conversation, and I try to do that as well, in HP, because, and really outside of it as well, I'm on several boards, and I try to get involved as much as I can, because I think it doesn't take a lot as a mentor to really make a difference in someone's career or in a particular moment. And there was something that I learned recently. I think last year I went to a class about executive management and leadership, and there was, part of it was a workshop about coaching. And it was one of the parts that made me most nervous about giving mentorship, was when people would ask me and they would say, when they're saying, I have this problem and I don't know what to do, I would be thinking in my head, oh my God, I don't know what to tell this person. What do I tell them? Because they're asking me, I need to have an answer for them. And in this coaching workshop, they actually really taught us, it's really not about telling the other person what to do. It's really about you helping them work through their problem themselves. And they probably already have what they need to be able to work through and figure out what a good solution would be. And I can't even tell you what like a click that was for me, because it really took away a lot of that anxiety of saying I'm not going to know what to say. And it's really worked for me, I think, with all different levels of people, quick conversations, ongoing ones. It's a lot harder to apply to yourself, of course. It's always easier when somebody else does it. So I think that's what's, it's really easy sometimes, even if it's someone like that's a peer. You just think about it, you help them and say, well, what do you think you could do about this problem? Let's talk through what you've already thought of, or what have you already tried? And sometimes that's all you need to really have a productive conversation there.
Maria, in terms of, you're a big advocate in terms of balancing your life and obviously making it all happen and making it all work. What would be the best advice you would give someone at a young age just trying to break into?
Well, first I want to say it's a very important identifier. It's ing, balancing. Balancing, it's a verb, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always say, well, people ask me, work-life balance, do you live it, do you believe it? I say, I balance, I'm always balancing things. I'm managing, and some days are really good. Some days I say, boy, I got everything done that I had planned. My kids after school, great decisions, great calls, great class that I taught today. I mean, and then some days it's horrible. Everything went wrong. And so and things didn't work out as they planned. So balancing is such an important element of work-life balancing, and trying to do what you've prioritized too. And it's continuous. You've got to be ready for those variables. Right. And when things don't work, look back and say, okay, today was not a good day. It didn't work, and why didn't it work? How can I improve it tomorrow? And whether it's at work, whether it's in your personal life, all the time I get people that, that come to me and say, well, I can't do a fitness program. I can't, I just don't, I've fallen off the wagon. And I said, well, just step back, what's not working, tomorrow's a new day. And so balancing is very important, and I encourage people to work through those variables. If you fall off, if things don't go great, look at the bright side, learn from it, and then do better tomorrow. And that's one of the things I strongly believe in. And then the other thing, I just wanted to go back to a question you asked earlier, because one of the best advices that I had received very early, and it goes back to whether it's protecting your brand or creating a brand for yourself. And you can never buy your reputation.
Yep.
You can never buy your reputation. And so I think very early in my career, I always said to myself, no matter what I do, I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to work hard, I'm going to learn, I'm going to skill myself, I'm going to surround myself with people, I'm going to set goals, but I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to have great days, I'm going to have lessons learned, I'm going to make good decisions that are going to go, yes, great decision. I'm going to make some bad ones that I'll look back and say, okay, didn't learn. I learned from it, didn't work. And, but I always said to myself, I always stay true to who you are, because your reputation, you can never buy it. It's one thing that you can never, once you've lost, your reputation is who you are, it's your brand, it's what you stand for. And so very early in my career, somebody gave me that advice, that always look to do the right thing and protect who you are, protect your brand and your reputation, because it can never be bought.
I totally agree with that.
And then you're
They can Google you, and they can. That's right.
Just some closing remarks from each of you in terms of like the best advice that you received as well, Jacqueline, and also Monique.
Which was, sorry, what was the question?
Some closing remarks in terms of the best advice that you received as well.
I think some of the best advice is, growing up, my mom would say to me, never be sloppy. And it doesn't mean keeping your room organized only. It means just in everything that you do, approach it with an organized mind and really try to do the best that you absolutely can. Be prepared, be thorough. And the second big piece of advice is back to reputation. Everyone you meet and everyone you touch, if you are nice or not nice, or you just manage up or sideways, it's going to come back to you. So just try to always remember to whoever you're working with or dealing with is someone that you want to be treated the same way. And it's unfortunate when you don't see that, and you do commonly, and it's a great thing to keep in the top of your mind.
I like that.
In addition to some of the advice that I've already talked about, I would just say really get in the trenches, even if it's just for a minute, to understand what everybody in your organization above you, parallel, below you sort of does. You don't have to be able to do the jobs. You certainly don't have to do it better than they do, because that's why they're there. But it allows you to really understand big picture, how all of the pieces of the puzzle in whatever project, whatever environment you are, come together. And so many times I think executives at any level are sort of handicapped because they don't really understand how all of the pieces of the organization in which they're working, or the organizations that they work with, come together. And I would say that understanding the culture and how the workplace environment really fits together will get you greater success rate in anything that you do.
Just to finalize, do you think women work well with other women?
I think we do when we want to. And I think that's something that we oftentimes we're so perfectionist very often women. We're very demanding with ourselves, and we hold others to that same standard. And sometimes I think that hurts us when we realize that we're driving the bus, but nobody else is on the bus along with us. And so I think sometimes it's just a matter of taking a moment to slow down and see, what are the different perspectives that people have around me, and how do I take best advantage so that we can all be successful. I think that sometimes you just have to take a step back.
Yeah, I think we can do better. I think, honestly,
Yes.
I think it's one of those areas we can do better. I think as
agree.
women, especially in corporate America, what I've seen, it's the success of one woman should be, supported by another. And I think it's getting better, but let's not paint. It's not where it could be, and it needs to be. And so I think that this is an area for sure. I salute women when they get promoted at IBM, and it's great to see, especially Hispanic women, diversity, and especially in a company that's so male-dominated. We have to celebrate achievement of women.
And I think as we see more
Yeah.
and more women in executive roles, people will lighten up on their competitiveness, and
Yeah.
it'll just become much more, because naturally we're nurturers. And we want to bond. We want to go backstage and talk about our personal lives and our work lives. So I think as we see more women in those seats.
And there's plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of opportunities now because more women are taking those seats. Where I think before it was, okay, maybe there was 2 roles and there's 2 women. Oh my gosh, they got it before, you know. And so it was almost this competitive. So I'm glad that a woman's there. Why couldn't it be me? Now there's a bigger platform for those women
It's
to
not a
really
zero-sum game
lead.
anymore.
Right.
Right.
I think that for many years, you know, back in the 80s in particular and early in the 90s, women thought they had to be more like men to succeed. And so they spent a lot of time and energy focusing on how to be more like a man in a male-dominated society and in their workplace, and forgot about the fact that they have this whole other community that could actually help them get ahead. I think the tide has definitely turned. I agree that we can do better, but women should not focus, I think, on just competing with the men. It should be about how do we, you know, all ships rise on a high tide, right? Is that the expression? And I think the more that we understand that the success of, you know, our sisters in the workplace affect us, the better we'll be at it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all of you. Please win. Big round of applause. And that's what we're doing today. We're celebrating women. So thank you, Martina, Monique, and Jacqueline, and also Maria for joining us today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.